non-reverend saint. We must focus, our brothers. We must focus. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to the official episode of Everyday Black Man Podcast, a podcast for authentic black male thoughts. You have your boy Riker here. You got Reed,
The
Sham,
goat.
White Collar Suge, Stylish, the writer. The only person we don't have here is Armstead and Black Libertarian, but I'm pretty sure one of the two will join us midway through the episode. But most importantly, we have a bunch of guests, and I mean a bunch of guests. We have our second time on the podcast guest, Dr. Gucci, and we also have coming today for a special guest spot. We have Dr. Donovan, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about a documentary that he's working on, and then we're going to ask some questions. But Dr. Donovan, we're going to clear the floor for you. Of course, y'all subscribe to the Patreon. But tell us a little bit more about what made you decide to get into making a documentary, and also tell the folks a little bit more about what it's about.
I want to thank you for inviting me to this podcast to speak on the documentary that I've been working on. It's called Breaking Barriers, Black Males into Medicine. So the reason why I made this documentary because I've been in medical education for over 20 years. I worked at various medical schools across the country. And around 2015, the AAMC, which is the umbrella, the Association of American Medical Colleges, came out with this report talking about that black males since 1978, the numbers have been decreasing representation in medicine, and for black women, the numbers have been increasing since 1986. So as I was getting my doing my dissertation, I wanted to really look at this problem from a not from what's going on, but from a deficit model, meaning what are the things that black males don't have, and what are some of the things that are impacting them. I really wanted to find solutions to the problem. So this was part of my dissertation, and I decided to turn it into a documentary because I think there's not been many conversations around this epidemic. And the numbers really, what the AAMC said since 1978 is really false. It's actually since 1940. The numbers have the percentage of black males in 1940 that were in medical school were 2.7. Compared to today, the numbers have hadn't gone up, but they kind of dipped a little bit at 2.6. So this is a problem that really impacts the overall health. Health is wealth. And this documentary is based out of the city of Detroit. Detroit is the I think Memphis has surpassed it as the predominantly black city, but this is the impact of black males really cause a lot of health disparities. And the reason why why it's so important to know is because we had off the conversation we were having about the Super Bowl. You see predominantly black males in athletics, and one of the reasons why you see predominantly black males in in athletics, is because it's money in it. Okay, it's money in having black males so you can control their bodies. There's not any money not any money when it comes to black males as physicians, because the money is keeping the black community sick through the pharmaceuticals, right? High diabetes is one of the things, hypertension. All these different, preventative medicine, preventative diseases can be preventative, and all the research says black men are the most likely to practice in their community, to practice in an underserved community. So the lack of black males in medicine it's impacting overall health of the black community and communities that have lack of access to health. So this is why it's so critical that we really look at this is why this documentary is so important, that to bring this problem to the masses, because the medical school, they've known this. This is nothing new in the medical field. Everyone knows this is something that they talk about all the time, but the money is not in the solution. The money is in the problem. So this is why I made this documentary. This is the second documentary. There was one made by Black Men in White Coats. This is another documentary to really, talk about this, to create a forum to talk about this problem.
Well, excellent. Thank you for kind of diving into it. I know
I got a
that.
question.
Go ahead, read.
All right. Hey, so the one thing that I've noticed about doctors, let's go. So doctors beget doctors. I mean, like, second generation doctors, third generation doctors. Do you think that's part of the problem? And just to let's throw a little thing on this. I know a lot of black people who are becoming doctors, but they aren't black Americans. They are like immigrants or immigrants' children, which are black Americans. But I'm saying there's a difference without a distinction there. But what do you think that's the case too as well?
Oh
Far
man,
as you
you
know,
no, you hit the nail on the head, brother. That is a
okay,
convers. That's a very controversial topic in medicine. Uh, one of
okay.
my one of my mentors, Doctor Doctor Times, he's come up with this. Who really is a physician? He's out in Grand Rapids. No, he's out in Harvard, Michigan, and he really always talks about like it's called DOSA. It's called the Descendants of Enslaved people, or it's just something of that nature. And he really talks about when we look at African American males, when you look at the ones who come from, the historical slave trade, numbers are even worse. Like the numbers are probably like point 0.2, point 0.2, point 0.5. So you're right,
Yeah,
but also too, what's very interesting is if you look at those ones who come from Africa and the Caribbean,
correct.
it's the second generation. Those ones who are coming into medicine now are practicing medicine. I guarantee they're first generation because when the second generation experiences are just like African Americans, right? Because they have been indoctrinated into the into America's Eurocentric education system, which is
But I
really
don't
the
think they
problem.
would they wouldn't give that dedication to the black community. They would give to their own distinct communities. That would be different versus a black community, wouldn't it be? That to be the
No,
case,
but
like a
I'm talking about.
Nigerian doctor would probably be in a Nigerian neighborhood. Not necessarily. They'll probably follow the money. They're
I,
Nigerians.
I got a question
Like
But
about
they,
that though, Reed.
but
What you're
they,
saying? Because I was thinking about it's not I don't think it's always like as black and white. Do you like when those first generation and second generation Africans come here? There's not a what's the word, a hindrance in confidence and capability.
yes,
Because I look at I'll say my family. We got two black doctors in the family, and my mother automatically assumes the woman is a nurse all the time. And like we're looking at her like we got to like yo chill, because that could, it's not disrespectful because a nurse is a respectable position, but I think it's like a degradation of confidence within like the community where how many black families coming up from poverty like encourage their kids to be doctors versus like you said, it's a family that already has one, and there's a second
it's
generation
easier to
doctor,
become a
third.
doctor when your parents can pay for you to be a doctor.
Yeah, but that's what I was
Yeah.
saying. Like, well,
Okay.
not. I mean, it's not even just the case though. My cousin, he didn't come. He come from the same background I did. He went to Harvard and all that. It's just also knowing.
The
It wasn't the
exception
fact that
doesn't
they
make
had
the
money.
rule.
Well, no, I'm not talking about the exception. It was
Oh,
the fact that he knew how to navigate certain avenues when it came to funding. It wasn't like nobody told him to be a doctor. When we heard that, we were like, "Oh shit!" Like,
what?
okay, But
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it
Yeah, the
looks like
only
that.
black physicians I know, they get into like sports medicine, and I'm like, bro, that's not the
Yeah. So I
that's
think
not
I
the
think
doctors
it's a
we need.
confidence
Well,
thing.
again, what the doctor was saying is that there's many motivations for people getting into medicine. Well, actually, his documentary, if you watch the trailer,
Trailer.
it does say that. Yeah, and I'm also an aspiring physician and working on navigating this very, very treacherous water.
it
It
is.
isn't easy.
It is.
Financing is only one problem.
Yes.
And even if you're a generational physician, right? Like let's say your parents were physicians or your family had physicians and then they helped you get along the bandwagon, right? There's also many challenges within
Yes.
becoming a doctor and then when you are a doctor there is a lot of challenges within there and that navigating that field it can be very arduous when you don't have guidance in the field.
Yes.
So that's also a major difference. And actually, when you're going back to like why, Black physicians are on decline, there's many factors, and history plays a huge part of it. Whereas in
Barriers.
education, when it comes to Black men, very huge part. Also, when it comes to the Black culture in America being, how do you say, de-educated, demonetized, they were attacked. So when they had an just after, was it the not Civil War? After the Civil War,
You're right.
where you had
Insurrection.
blacks trying to get ahead, and they were starting to get ahead, and then you have the establishment actually attack them to break them down. That also had an effect on
Yeah, they created new
medicine in
barriers
Black.
such as educational standards and things they do. That's what they do.
That's when the price of
That's
education
true
went
too,
up
but
for colleges.
there
Yeah.
was also a bounce back when it came to actually, HBCUs.
Yes.
HBCUs saw this and saying, you know what, we need to go ahead and attack this issue, so we're going to create our own schools so that they can actually, challenge the status quo, which they've done, but it still is a very arduous path to navigate.
And
Yeah,
And I'm
Okay.
saying that
HBCUs
as
was
one that's aspiring to be a physician.
Well, no, that's a
HBCUs
great
were.
point.
Go ahead, you guys get it. I guess.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, I mean, let's hear about it from the other side. Dr. Gucci, what was it like navigating the waters in another country versus navigating the waters here?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Pleased to be here. Yeah, medicine in Nigeria vis-a-vis medicine in America are quite very different entities. Although it's the same storyline, medicine, but the practice is, much more different because first of all, you see very different kinds of diseases. Most of the diseases common here are not very, very common over there. In Nigeria, we're still talking about things like polio. We're still talking about things like malaria. These are things that have been eradicated, in the developed countries. Um, you know, uh, there are certain diseases we saw, we were just told, oh, if you happen to travel abroad, you will see this. But, trust me, haven't navigated med school here in the US or in the Caribbean US community. I know for a fact that I've seen and I've been able to witness some of these conditions. Even also the medical curriculum is also streamlined in a way that you have a straight 7 year medicine course in Nigeria, and vis-a-vis, yeah, you go to the sciences first, graduate from the sciences, and then you go straight into medicine for another 4 years. So the curriculums are quite different, but at the end of the day, it's the same outcome, which is medicine. But again, the pattern of diseases you see, you know, like in in Nigeria, you talk about malaria. In America, you talk about babesiosis. You know, yeah, most of those cancers, we see and read in the books are just are things that we read in passing. But here you begin to see begin to see a different pattern of diseases that you see, but which is good because you have a perfect blend of what is obtainable in Africa and what is obtainable back here in the US. Talking about the topic for today, which is about Black men in medicine, I feel that yeah, I heard when the doctor said that the numbers have been very constant. It's been very, very constant since the 40s. And at 2.6, 2.7, it's still not enough because we definitely need more Black people in medicine, to be honest. We definitely need more Black people and more Black men in medicine because this will having more Black people in medicine helps with the health disparities. It helps to cushion that health disparity that you have, and helps also build trust, within the community, within the population here. Um, I also believe that having more Black people in medicine will help with you know increasing and increasing access to healthcare, and I think the bottom line is that trust. So if you trust the system, you want to commit further. You want to commit more to the process. So yeah, we really do need more Black people in medicine.
Thank you, Doctor.
Uh,
Uh, sorry, did you have something, Doctor? Or
yeah.
Dr. Gucci?
Yeah, okay. So I was talking. I was trying to, make some adjustment for some of the reasons why we have some of these, these reductions in black males in medicine. Um, I think from statistics, you find out that, 2/3 of the population of doctors are white. That's a huge chunk, about 65.6%. You know, are white. A further 18% are Asians and 8.9% are Hispanics or Latinos. I have just 5% for for black doctors, and of that, 2.8 have identify as black women, and 2.6 for the men. So that's 2.6 is really really small. I also believe that what the reasons for that, some of the reasons why that number is very very low, has to do with discrimination, racial and financial disparities. When you compare, the white vis-a-vis the blacks for the most part, and the fact that if you have less people, less black males in medicine, you have less mentorship, and that will also affect mentorship and networking. So if you have more people in medicine, you have more mentorship and you have more networking, vis-a-vis. And then there's already this, the media has been painted in such a way that they give a kind of negative disposition towards minorities, and this creates a kind of I would say maybe internalized stereotypes, so that also has a way of affecting the psyche of an average person who is trying to get into medicine and all that. So
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to ask a question. Sorry to interrupt. With your experience overseas, out of the country versus here, have you ran into the disparity in just classism, or you know, the nepotism of students in med school that come from second, third generation of, I would specifically target the white med students and doctors too. The intimidation tactics or judgmental active what's the judgmental practices towards the black or brown skin students and whatnot. Like that's a did is it is that anything like that going on over there versus here, like you spoke of the discrimination and separation?
Yeah, so I trained back in Nigeria, and I also elected to retrain back here in the US. So I attended I'll use myself as an example. I went back to a Caribbean med school here, and even in the med school, the way you could see those stereotypes, you could see that disparity as well. You know, the school I went to is largely populated by you know the whites from like American whites, vis-a-vis, you still have some blacks too, but you could also see how, even in class, and how, when we have certain programs together, how certain set of people, even though they don't try to make it very, very um obvious, but you could also see that some certain set of people are favored, more than the other set of people. We see these things, but we just act like, it's the way sometimes some of these you know teachers or professors will treat a certain kind of student is not the same way they would treat an immigrant, or like somebody coming, a black person, or somebody coming from India, or so it's also different. And if you have an Indian professor, the way he's going to treat the Indians is not the same way he's going to treat an average black person like me coming from Nigeria in the US, going to a Caribbean med school. So it's those things are always there, and to some extent collectively has a way of affecting how you navigate. If you're someone who is very very if you're someone who, you need to develop some certain kind of tough skin, towards some of these things, because if you don't, it has a way of affecting your psyche and how you see things, going forward. So I just believe that, yeah, those things they're always there. They're always there. If you the same, it's double standard. The same way you would treat a typical white, student is different from the same way you would treat. even though they try to make it like, oh, it's all diversity, we're all the same, we treat everybody equally, but we still know, because we see some of these things, that, oh, when it's like this person gets this treatment, but when it's like this other person gets this treatment. So it's always there. We see these things all the time.
And I want to support what Dr. Gucci Chris said, because I've been the vice dean of diversity, equity, inclusion at several medical schools, and he's so right. There's a different tier when you're talking about the way students are treated in medical school, and one of the things that really impact, African American students is the fact that it's this sense that they're there because of them being, because of their skin color, which is not true. They really had to go through a lot to get into medical schools. They went through a lot of adversity, especially black males. They've done all the necessary work in order to be in medical school. And this is this sense that they were there because of a quota or affirmative action or diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we all know that, if you look at the numbers, the people who benefited from diversity, equity, inclusion, the last is not black males. Black males are the least of the population who did not benefit from diversity, equity, inclusion. It's actually white women. So this is why
Black women.
white women. So when you look at medical education, you look at who now medical education now is 51%, 52% women, and majority of those are going to be white women. So when you're talking about, this atmosphere that black males are being, ushered in medical education, is really a hostile environment. It's an environment that really um, say that they want to support, everything, everybody's equal, but once you get onto that campus and you see the truth, it really impacts you in a negative way. I mean, before you can even start to study, you have to impact all the microaggressions and all the, overt uh, biases that you're dealing with. And then, by the time it's 7 or 8, you have to then start shift and pivot and study. So it's a hostile. It's a very hostile environment that you're walking into, and just because you see another black professor or you see another black physician within those walls, don't necessarily means that they're not gatekeepers too. Like
Facts.
all,
I would question how often do you see that, because everybody that I've met, or even my wife now who's going to PA program, I haven't heard any of them speak of having a black lecturer, professor, or anything of that sort. Like it's very uncommon from what the few I've ran into, which it sucks because outside of just representation, it's just to have that at least some sense of comfort. Be like, okay, well, I'm not the only one here outside of other class students. If you get another student,
I'm gonna give you a story. Uh, it was an African American physician, high ranking in the school I once worked in. There were two incidents. We had a conversation. One, we have these like they have these they try to build some solidarity amongst the students. So it was this, event for all African Americans, students. He stood up and told the African American students that in this setting he will support them, but on that campus he will not, because it would give the sense that he's only for African American students. Or you see, but nobody questions, when the white professors give the white students, or the Indians give the Indian students, or um, you know, no one, or the Asian physicians give the Asian students proof, support them. It's only when it comes to us. Here's a second. This gentleman been at the school for about 10 years, and we had, our graduation, and he told me that he didn't know any of the graduating students who walked across the stage. And that's concerning. This guy was like second in charge at the medical school, and he gave me this last Um, example, I want to get how all skin folks and kin folks. He told me that a gentleman told him if he sees more than two black people in a room, he knows he's going to get poor, and that's including himself. So it's this elitist. When it comes to black physicians, and I'm not a physician, I've just been in the field for 20 years. It's elitist, club. And unfortunately, they, pick and choose who they feel is worthy of being in that club. And sometimes it's based off colorism. We still know that in our community, colorism is real, especially African American community. So the darker you are, from my perspective, the less likely, you'll be part of the club. And those are some of the things that from me being in the field for 20 years, you know, being a vice dean, which is, hit the ceiling for not being a physician to hit to become a vice dean. And that's one of the things that really um, impacted me in order to write. And I'm writing 3 books at the same time about how we can increase black male representation and how do we reimagine diversity, equity, inclusion within medical school. And also, to the third one is I'm a learning specialist. I think one of the things that impact a lot of the students for not being successful is that a lot of students do not know how to study independently. You learn 20% of content within the classroom. 80% of what you're going to learn is in your class, is outside the classroom. So, like how to preview, how to, write notes. All these things you think that a lot of physician students will come in. It's not just African American, it's all students. A lot of students do not know how to study independently. And that is the biggest barrier. It's not the fact that African Americans don't have the intellectual capacity. It goes back to what one of the gentlemen says. It's the social capital. Like they don't have the mentorship, social capital network. They don't have the necessary tools to succeed. So what they do is they brutally go through it by just grinding because they used to facing adversity, which led them to be successful. So this is one of the things that I'm really trying to be a part of the solution instead of the problem and talking about this. And I think this is why it's so important that we find solutions and not talking about the deficit, but talk about how can we increase. And I really feel that medical schools really have the power to do something, but few of the 150 schools really put any money or put any muscle behind, solving this problem when they know what the outcomes and how beneficial it is to the African American community to have more black males as physicians.
I'd like to also add on to that because what I've also noticed in the community is the socioeconomical status plays a huge role, and it's basically picking off of what you said, Dr. Roy, where students don't know how to study. And then there's another thing also in medical school that most people don't know, and it's adaptability. Not just knowing how to study, but to change your study method or just change your approach on tackling a problem when you see a problem arise and adjusting quickly. And I noticed because I actually have a doctor that I talked to that's married to my mother, and like I talked to him about how he went through med school, and he act like it was nothing because his primary schooling they taught him all the skills that he needed that he can use to flourish in medical school. Like he didn't even really bat an eye. But like when I look at it, I was like, none of my schools taught me these tools to study and to learn. I had to learn these tools and learn how to apply them in this medical setting. And I actually noticed too, like talking to other young black individuals going through their their schools. Their schools aren't necessarily teaching them, hey, look, this is how you study, this is how you be proficient, this is how you do things. In order for the black community to get around that, and I've seen this with my family, is that they actually send their children to these white schools or to these Ivy League schools, and then they actually end up teaching them skills so that when they go into college, they can flourish because they've learned those skills that the whites use. So, and again, as you said, Dr. Roy, like blacks don't necessarily lack the commitment or the mental cognitive ability. It's just that they lack the tools because they're not in the environments that which they are taught so that they can thrive.
I totally agree with that. That is so important. And also, too, it goes back to what you just said. They also see when you send your child to one of those, private schools uh, that really have a strong science component. A lot of that stuff that you're seeing in high school is going to be repeated in college. So a lot of times, if you go to a low resource school as an African American male, sometimes the people who are teaching the sciences did not graduate with a science background. That's something else that we need to discuss. Or your school don't have, chemistry, biology. You have earth science, life science. You don't have the the experience of going through these science courses. And the first time that you ever see those courses are as a freshman, when your colleagues are seeing this for the second time. We know the more you see something, the more you learn it. And so when you get into your sophomore year of college, that's where you see a huge fall off of African American men going into pre-meds. They end up dropping out because as they go further into advanced science, they get into the C's. Again, it's not the fact that, like, once again, it's not the fact they don't have the intellectual capacity to be successful. It's the lack of opportunity, the lack of social capital in order to be successful. So research says that entering undergraduate schools, around 42% of African Americans want to go into um, be pre-med or still feel. Same as white males, 45%. When the numbers at the end of when at the end, you got a 40% of the Caucasian males that graduated. When you look at the black males, you see 5%. So we see
Is
these
there
things.
from the inside out? Is there also some form of favoritism when there's Caucasian or, like you said, Indian Asian? If there is a struggle and they allow some like bend the rules or curve because um, I've heard of instances where some students didn't necessarily pass whatever exam or uh, I forgot the different terminology of what they have for end of course or whatever, but they are given a second chance to either retake or that there's a review of what their results are and to get them
Okay,
right over the hump.
yeah.
Is that a
So
thing?
that's a good question. So what we see is sciences is a doggy dog world. Everybody eats their own. That's one thing. Okay, no, so everybody eats their own. But when you're talking about people going to their own silos, so you'll see, the Asian kids study only with the Asian kids. You see the African American students, for it's only a couple study with each other. So that's another phenomenon. But also too, fraternities. One of the I've heard this. This is not just one student. I heard this all the time. The fraternities, the white fraternities, have the exams. If you have a professor that's been teaching there for 15, 20 years, he's not going to change up the exam. So you have these fraternity guys who actually remember the questions and the answers, and they have a database or a filing system where they say, oh, here, if you're taking this class, here's the exam. Because one of my students was like, she was struggling, and she noticed this white guy who never came to class, but he always got A's, and he took pity on her because she was stressing out. He was like, you don't have the questions, the answer to the exam. She's like, what? He's like, here's the answer to the exam. Everybody has these except you. This is why you're struggling. She ended up getting an A in the course because this one white guy took pity out on her. So to answer your question, it's not. It goes back to that social network. It goes back to social network. Is
Yeah.
that when we get into the space, we do not have a social network in order to level the playing field for us. We actually, that's why I say when African Americans get into medical school, male or female, or Latinos, when they get into medical school, I'll say not all white students have that same privilege, but a lot of them, have that. A lot of them have earned their way in because they had to work hard, doubly hard, in order to be there because of this lack of social network and social capital that other population has. And I don't want to diminish the hard work because medical school is no joke. I mean, if anybody who plays sports or football, especially football, have gone through Hell Week, medical school is like going through 48 months of Hell Week. It is intense. It is crazy. And if you don't have the necessary resources to be successful in it, if you don't have the social network to be successful, it is going to be a grind. And that's why you see a lot of students not end up passing. It's not because they don't have the capacity or the financial support. It's the fact that it is a dog eat dog world and everybody eats their own.
Yeah, I'd like to.
I can add
Okay.
I can add to that real quick. So I agree with what you're saying about the dog eat dog world. Also in medical school, I think one of the biggest thing or the big thing I saw was the Indian communities, they look out for each other, but the blacks do not.
Amen.
I remember like some people would have papers, have answers to papers, but they're keeping that for themselves. And also where you have group of people studying together, sometimes, I might be wrong, but sometimes the male folk thinks they think that they are better off or they are better than this other person and don't come. That's all about humbling yourself, wanting to understand and wanting to know what's going on. But if you feel like you're better than this person because, okay, first of all, I went to some school in Mississippi or something like that, you would not be able to get other material from people. So that's one thing. Humility is something I feel like most of us black people lack. And then secondly is we're not looking out for each other. Those are the two things I think were the biggest things for the black community in medical school.
Yeah. So yeah, I completely agree with the last with DJ. Yeah, we I had a similar experience while in the Caribbean. There was a time some of our exams were being set by one medical body, and most of the time they were repeating questions, and some like most of the Indian folks had access to those questions, and they were doing very, very, very well. You see some people that don't come to class, they don't do anything, but they just aggregate themselves together during the exams, yeah, close to exam time, and they come out in flying colors, and everybody's like, "Oh, these people are very good. They are so good." I remember I had my colleagues, I had my friends had to sweat for every every score we got in the exam. We had to put in so much work. But there were people who were not doing so much, and they were just coming out with straight grades like that. Um, it was later on when the school now started setting in-house questions that we decided that we now knew that most of these things were because most of the time it was because these people had already seen the past questions, they've revised it over and over and over and over and over again. So it goes back to what DJ said and what Dr. Dr. is it
Donovan
Roy?
Roy.
Yeah, yeah. It goes back to what you said that sometimes when people are able to just we 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 don't have that social mentorship. We don't have that social um capacity as a group to be able to help ourselves and to be able to do things in a way that benefits us. So yeah, I quite agree with two of you. I agree totally.
And also, too, sometimes we don't want to admit when we're struggling. You know, we don't
Sure.
go seek help. And it's understandable because when you seek help, you don't get the same help as someone else for African American. It's always looking at, oh, that's what are you doing wrong? What are you not doing right? And it's the same, and it could be the fact that the instructor lacks the ability to connect the content to the students. I think we put, and I always stood up and said that it's sometimes it's not the students, it's the information that's been delivered to the students and how the people who are delivering the information are not making those associations. So that's another thing that really is an advocate. A lot of times when you go to the schools, you don't have someone like myself advocating for the students. And if you advocate for this for African Americans, you are shunned. You are isolated. And you have to be very strong. Because what the students are going because I always tell the students, I understand what you're going through because I'm going through the same thing and I'm an adult. I'm 6'6". I'm a former offensive lineman. I played at the University of Southern California. So I understand about adversity. I'm built for this. But our students need someone who's going to advocate. If you don't have no one advocating for you as African, because really, medicine is anti-black. Education is anti-black, and especially medicine, because a lot of the diseases that are being taught are not taught from an African American perspective. Related to skin, related to skin. A lot of the stuff that they rarely see it on an African American patient of the skin tone. So that's another thing that I had that when it comes to medicine, you have to really eliminate the hidden biases. A lot of hidden biases when it comes to us is all about stereotype. It's all about stereotype. And you
I find it interesting everything that y'all hit on, and even the questions y'all answered for us identified quite possibly the top key points within Black Americans in every field where we don't succeed outside of when they want us to succeed in sports and entertainment. But in the professional world, in lower education, higher education, doctors, like you said, in all these professions, and I, from the book that we speak on all the time, and here outliers to other books that talk on just strife within humans. Period. We are the only culture that are self-deprecating. Like we don't help each other. And it's crazy to like. I don't know how many times the discussion has to be made on small platforms to big platforms, but it's just interesting to hear you guys all from different backgrounds, same profession, but that's like the common denominator, and then you can align it with all the other you know environments that Black Americans are in, and it's always other blacks don't help us. We don't have like it's a rarity. That's crazy. It's not crazy for me to hear, but it's just for lack of better terms, it's just
But he
crazy that
also
it's
said
repeated.
that he said they can't help you without suffering a consequence.
I
So
that's
know,
the
that's the
and that
problem.
problem.
falls also in it too, though. That's the alignment
Yeah,
because we
yeah.
we regardless of what environment, it's the barriers internally and externally that we run into, and it's ignored obviously by the other side. Even when you said DEI, and I was muted, but like I laughed because like it's there to do great things, and yet it's been turned into
No,
the
it's
new
not.
N
It's
word.
there to do things for white women and Asians.
I'm talking about what it was meant
Yeah,
for versus what it is
yeah.
for.
No, what it is for is what it's meant to do. It did what it was meant to do. It was never to help black people, like black men, exactly. I mean, you'll probably get one or two, but compared to the number of men that's available to do that, that's not really
And
fair. That's not
and
equitable.
also too, it's a delusion. I had this conversation with my family members, and they're like, "Oh, DUI is being, eliminated." And I was like, "Listen, DUI didn't do anything for black people. It did, and they can defend them.
You'll get a sprinkle of black women.
Because,
That's about it. You'll get a sprinkle
yep,
of black women.
and, and
That's
if
about it.
and
Yeah,
go
that's about it. It's
Hey,
like
hey, hey,
affirmative
hey!
action.
You'll get a Dr. King poster somewhere in the corner of
right,
the
and the funny
office.
thing, Dr. Martin Luther, when he was alive, his approval rate was 3% when he was alive. So that's
Yeah,
another thing. And I have to tell my family is like when Martin Luther King, he said towards the end he questioned if integration was possible
possible.
or if integration was a good thing. He said he's afraid that he's sending his community into a burning building.
That's
He
been a
did.
discussion in recent years where I think Killer Mike even talked about it. He's like where black people actually thrived when
We did.
segregation was
We
legal.
did.
We did.
It's hard to
Everything.
argue.
Everything was
I
black.
know.
Black
Yeah,
doctors,
Yeah, but like
black
black
that's
veins.
dominance
where
stayed
that's why
local.
it's hold on, but that's where it circles Little Brown back to what he's saying. Black people are going to go into black neighborhoods, but do you support your black doctors? Do you got a black insurance agent? Do you got a black this, black that, whatever? And then keep that cycle going. But the problem is the people who experience a lot of wealth start getting other people to do that kind of stuff. Like you can't find you a black accountant, like you got a Jewish accountant.
Well,
I get it.
that's where the disadvantage comes in social equity, because then there's the network. Even when it comes to law, those lawyers that are successful usually have a good relationship with the judges that they are presented in front of.
Network.
It's not necessarily that they're a better
Yeah,
lawyer. Their relationships are what helps their career thrive. And
Yeah.
yeah.
usually
But
it is a cultural thing.
then you go to the black people they present in front of you that present
Yes,
lies in
sir.
front of you. Like when you're presenting somebody like LeBron James act like Maverick Carter is that guy. But I want you to really look at that team. You always see this bald white guy. That guy is the guy that runs LeBron's everything. Maverick Carter is not the guy. They are lying to you. It is
Yeah.
that
I
guy.
mean,
But Maverick Carter is just the
Kodak
face.
Black said something like that years ago, what I thought was interesting, even though it came from him, where he said Master P said something to him because Master P wanted to link up with him and do something for the community. And Kodak went on later and on that same platform said, yeah, my problem is when I go to these other black folks, they want to charge me this and charge me that, and they're not even offering a quarter of what this white guy over here is offering me. And they're not even charging me all the things that they're charging. Like, that's another thing with the distrust or the opportunistic
No, but what
nature
I'm saying
of.
is the system has done that on purpose. Like it's
Well,
it's
yeah.
it's
No one
pervasive. Like
disagreeing with you. I think on that part. I think
yeah,
though the way that we have to do is, I mean, we could talk about the problems all day
What's the
long.
solution?
They're a mountain high, but yeah, the solution, I mean, I think is just for us to do more within our communities. Like, I mean, my doctor is black. Now he's also Nigerian.
mine is too.
He's
Mine is
also
too. He's Nigerian.
he's like
Nigeria.
he's first generation, and he's here to
Yep.
really like change things for his community. But even like with Dr. Gucci Chris or Dr. Ryder or Dr. DeeJ, um, I've seen y'all interact together with these things and kind of building your own networks. And I think that's more so the solution for us is we have to build those networks. Like we got a stylist here. He's about to be a black accountant. He's going to specialize in one thing and then he'll change to something else. I'm not going to say what specialization because you know the Matrix love to hear that. So they can try to throw something in your way. But we need to do more to branch out these relationships. So these kind of conversations, like having Dr. Donovan making a documentary, you got to support him. I mean, we go back to mothers who won't let fathers see their children. Like that guy, he is building something to kind of shine a light on a problem, and that's really what we need to do more of is focusing on that. But I think this has been really good. But because I want to be, cognizant of like the amount of time that we're taking here, yeah, if y'all got a few more questions y'all want to ask Dr. Donovan, let's go ahead and focus on that, and then we can go ahead and close out.
Oh, I think they have like a Black Medical Healthcare Association. Like when they have those kind of associations, why don't they help? Or is it like every other black association that gets taken over by somebody else working in the in
Oh,
efforts
when
from
I think
someone
about
else?
that, I
Is
think
that
about the
similar?
AMA and the NMA. I think they are very conscious of the problem. I think one, it goes back to what you said previous about Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, the AMA, these associations are physicians, so they only when they need people who are experts in these type of fields. Like someone like myself who's an educational psychologist, I've been very beneficial with and supporting the institutions that I've been because I see it from a different perspective, not from the physician perspective. You need people who are from different sectors in order to fix this problem. I think they're very concerned about these problems, but also too they're going back to their part of the world, and they're the only two or three black physicians there, and they balance systems. Dr. DeeJ, Dr. Gucci, I forgot the other physicians are here.
Dr. Ryder.
Yeah, you guys are battling a system by yourself, and it can weigh down on you, just like the rest of it. And sometimes we do not rely on each other. These type of conversations that are being like we're having needs to be have at the top, at the national level, and not just talking about it. Okay, we all get excited about it for the week that we're there. It might last like 2 weeks, and then we go back to business as usual, right? It needs to be constantly a conversation had. Like, how do we bring other entities in here in order to fix the problem? Because if we don't, not only are we going to be still healthy, but you got to remember, a report came out in 2053. The black community had a deficit, and right now we are like what, 10 trillion, a trillion dollars community. We need to, and the more physicians and the more people we have in engineer, the more we have people going in IT, the more our community is going to get stronger. We do not have the solidarity that we need in order to be successful. I think it goes back to earlier what you said. The Caribbean, the black diaspora in America need to come together. That's the conversation need to be had. It's not the fact that you catch in hell because you you're Caribbean or you're African or you from the slave tribe. You catch hell because you're black. Because America has a anti-black agenda. They rather see us.
To follow up, to follow with that question, do you think one of the biggest problems we have is there's a content with seeing the representation we have to where there's no initiative to try to back up and find the future replacements for those like
All day,
black leaders, doctors, and all
all
of
day,
that. Like there's always a content of we already got that. It's like yeah, but we need
all day.
more.
They don't want to give up. The old regime does not want to give up power. 'Cause nobody ain't listen to them. The only reason why that people dote on them is because of the power that they have. Just like
Mhm.
white supremacy. Nobody wants to lose power. And also too the generation, especially amongst black men, it's a generational thing. Like it's rare.
I think the one thing that I've seen when you talk about power is when I see a lot of older black physicians, they aren't I'm sorry, they aren't liberals.
They're
That's
not.
another thing they're not gonna put in front of
They're
you as
not.
a black man. They're not gonna put none like you got to be a old liberal black men, especially most men, and this is not like political today. Most men, as they get older, they get
Yes,
more
sir.
conservative. It is what it is. Yeah. So when these men get older, and the powers that be, who usually have the power to put these people in front of you, they're liberal. They're not going to put Ben Carson in front of you. When we were kids, I remember Ben Carson was never talked about in that way. But as he got older, they started to
Yeah,
realize this man not no
I,
Democrat. But
yeah.
like how Ben Carson was presented to me as a child, and then as he was presented to me as an adult, that stuff matters. He needs to just be presented as a doctor. None of that, like what was the book, Gifting Hands or Gifted Hands? But as I
Yeah,
got older, they try to present him like he's some left, right wing nutcase. But I'm just like, he's still a
he's a
doctor. That's Ben
he's a
Carson.
doctor. Yeah, they're just moving him into his not his
we
specialty.
need we need both.
I
We
mean,
need
that's
both perspectives. We can't fight amongst each other that who's left and who's right. You know what I mean? If you have,
no. They're only gonna put right and left left in front of you because they don't put right wing people in
and
front
that's
of you. It's
not.
just how the media's like left wing.
It,
It is what it is. But like, they're not gonna put that guy in front of you because they think it'll, whatever, poison your mind. But I'm just like, you need both. I'm with you. You need both.
you need
Balance. We need
balance. I
balance.
agree. You need to have, and I think that's one of the things that I see is that a lot of people do not like being around, love being around like-minded individuals, and that's not how you grow. The reason why I'm in the position that I am because I was forced to be a part of this environment in medical education where it's very conservative, it's very a Republican, and I'm not Democrat or I'm not a Republican. I'm a black man. Uh, I had to like really understand where they were coming from. When Donald Trump won the first election, when I was at a medical school in Los Angeles, I told all my colleagues that he was going to be the president. They laughed at me. They laughed at me. And when he became president, everybody started to cry. I said, "Why are you crying? Because you really see that what America really is built upon. You know, the problem with us as black people, we waiting for white people to help us. We waiting for them to acknowledge that that there's racism and that slavery really impact us still to this day. They're never going to admit that because once again they do that, then they see that they benefit for something. When they talk about privilege, they think, "Oh, I'm not rich." They don't understand that privilege is the fact of their skin color. And what I went back to say, when your skin color, colorism is a real thing because colorism and because it's based upon we as black people are American. The ones who were born here from the American slave trade at all, we are American through and through. We are not we're we don't have like when you talk about Nigeria, Nigerians still can go back to their homeland and see people that look like them. Hey, when you go back to Jamaica, you still see people that look like you in power. Here in America, we rarely see, like you said, we rarely see people in power that look like us or come from our community.
You do, but it's the ones they want to see. They want you to have in front of you, meaning that you don't have a real representation of you
How
to
many
some
black?
extent. Because
How
I
many?
think it's representation of skin color, not representation of how you think. Because that's where
Can I
representation
ask you
gets
a
it wrong.
question?
Just because they're black,
How many black? How many black deans? How many black deans in medical schools do you know?
I don't know
Exactly.
any.
Exactly.
You gotta
How
ask the
many?
medical
How
students.
many
Y'all
black
know it?
deans do they know? A medical
Hmm.
zero,
Zero.
zero. Right?
I knew
What
one,
about
but
the
she
one
died.
in Atlanta? Is he black? The one that
Yeah, she's from
what's that
Morehouse. The
school in
one
Atlanta?
African American woman. It's a couple black deans. It's a couple black
Yeah.
deans. It goes back to how can you envision something when you don't see it, and that's where it goes back. In order to see it, you have to. You have to. In order, if you role models are so critical, mentorship is so critical. If you don't have anybody that that has gone through that experience that looks like you and come from your same, it's going to be it's going to be a lot of adversity, a lot of pitfalls that you're going to deal with, and you don't have that mentorship and that guidance on how to, you know, maneuver through these obstacles and the pitfall. Especially me, I'm a first generation college student, single parent home. I grew up in Inglewood. I grew up during the crack epidemic. Like most, and that's another thing. When you go to these conferences, you see all these like, oh, they grew up in the inner city. I could tell a cat who didn't grow up in the inner city. You didn't because you run away from me because I come and have this conversation with you, and so this is what I'm saying. Representation is so important. Colorism is a real thing in America, and we still think it's not over. It's still the paper bag, the brown paper bag going on in medical education. This has evolved. It's evolved. It's evolved over the years. Everything has evolved, but it stayed the same. The only reason I can
Well, thank you. I
thank you
really
very much
appreciate
for
it.
having me.
I
No,
got
no,
a
no. I was gonna
question.
say I appreciate the response because yeah, that's true. I think especially like the mentorship, but we definitely do have to evolve it, and that's left to us because we're the next generation. We're the next ones at the bat. But go ahead, Reed.
One last question. What do you think about these obscure people calling themselves doctors, such as what's that brother's name, guys? You know, he was on our podcast before. Uh,
Oh, what you're talking about, Doctor Anki?
is that his name? The weird dude with all the herbs. Like these people are practicing like quote unquote
Now, first and
non-Western
foremost, he
medicine.
is a former guest. We're not gonna call Doctor Anki a weird dude. He is an
I mean,
herbalist.
that's what I'm
First and
saying.
foremost. No, sorry, he's a
Okay,
Just go for
master
the big. Just
herbalist.
go for the big fish. Umar. Umar. The big
Umar's
No,
fish.
no,
not
no, no,
big.
no, no, no.
Nah, Umar not that. He a
We
psychologist.
had Master Herbalist Anki on the podcast. We had him before he began his trajectory and became a rock star, which we take small amount of credit for. But what do you? Or sorry, Reed, finish the rest of the question. It's
Yeah, those
Master
people.
Herbalist.
I don't know what he is. I'm just be honest with you, but I know he
No,
got
that's what he
real
calls
popular.
himself. He's a master herbalist.
Okay, that's what they call themselves. What do you guys think about them inside of like traditional medicine?
I,
Um,
I s-
those guys. There's a lot of them. He's not the only
so
one.
I can
It's a lot of them.
one of the things that I can say is uh, I worked with Native American culture who do a lot of the traditional medicine. And one of the things that with Western medicine, as they call, one of the things they say is the fact that as medicine men, it's important that they work closely with the physicians. They both work hand in hand. So if an herbalist is telling their patients that they're the only to end all to be all, then that should, from my perspective, that's a problem. It should be they should work hand in hand. So that's my perspective on that. Is that if you have the knowledge, you have the foundation, if you did some type of form of education that's related to the body, to really related to some with documented research and documented practice on how to treat it, and then I don't see anything wrong with it. It's only when you try to exclude the trained physician out of the equation.
I, I think they do a little bit of both, right? For the most part, they also, I don't know if that's just a legal distinction they make. Because I was just like, when you said that, I'm just like, it made me go back to the original subject. Why? What is the number one thing you can say to a young person entering college right now to pursue a life in medicine? Because I think you said you played football and you went to
No,
medicine,
I'm a
right?
no. See, I
Oh,
got a doctor. I'm an educational psychologist. So yeah,
educational
so
psychologist.
I'm
Okay.
a learning specialist. So I help students become physicians. So one of the things I can understand, and that's interesting for another conversation. I led a national initiative to increase black males in medicine. Is looking at student athletes of all the social capital house, social network. Medicine and athletics run hand in
Right.
hand. That's another subject, a whole other tangent. But I led a national initiative at the national level to get more black males in athletics in medicine. I would say, I would say one is mentorship. You need to find mentorship. You need to be open to that mentorship. The mentorship doesn't necessarily have to be a black male, a black anybody who has the knowledge, anybody who has the social capital that you need. You need to seek out those individuals. One, you need to look out for help. You got to ask for help. It start day one. You have to ask for help. You cannot, you cannot be afraid to ask for help. Because sometimes when students ask for help, they feel like, oh, that's a weaknesses or somebody is judging me. I don't care if you're judging me, as long as I get to my end goal. Nobody is going to remember on February 16th at 7 o'clock that you went to ask so and so for help. All they're going to know is that at the end of the day, you reached the goal that you were trying to attain, and that's to be a physician. It's another thing that I would encourage you to do. And one of the things that you have to do is at the end of the day, you have to have a mindset that this system is not going to break me. You cannot, and you have to follow a strict, you got to be disciplined. And those are things that I would say that I've seen that has worked for students that I work with to become physicians that come from those socioeconomic backgrounds.
Excellent. Well, thank you. We really do appreciate your time, Dr. Donovan. Um, do you want to shout out any socials or anything that you want us to
Sure.
include?
I would love if you are interested in visiting my if you're interested in my documentary, uh, you can reach out to me at Pathways into Medicine at gmail.com, or you can go to my website, Pathways into Medicine uh, consulting .com. So it's Pathways. Thank you very much.
Excellent. No, no, sorry. No, I cut you off
Oh,
there. Sorry. No, but so pathways into medicine at gmail.com and pathways into medicine
no, it's Pathways
consulting.com.
into Medicine consultant at Gmail.
Thank you, sir, for correcting me. And I'll make sure to list both of those things in the show notes
Thank
as
you very
well.
much. And once I get my book, I would love to come back and discuss you guys in a couple months once I finish this book.
Hey, we would love to have you back on. So, once you get those creative juices flowing and you finish that book, definitely come back and discuss because people are definitely going to be very interested. I mean,
Yeah.
we need more black doctors and
Yeah.
especially
Come
black
back for
men.
all three books. All three books. Now, I'm going to let you know. I'll listen to it on tape, but I'm not going to read it. All right. So,
Oh man, okay.
are you going to dictate it
No,
personally?
no, I would do it both. I would do it. It'd be a hybrid. It would be both book and also 2 audio. So I would definitely come back and have a little brief summary of both books. They should be rolled out here in May. So I'll reach out to you guys sometime in April. discuss my book that I'm coming out with. So
Excellent. Well, we're looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Dr. Donovan. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Chris.
That was an interesting conversation. That was awesome. Like all
It
of them
was.
speaking on the same thing.